The worsening food crisis is not the only challenge desirous of urgent intervention, but the unabating insecurity.
The Senate aware.
In a motion of urgent importance, the killing of over 50 persons in at least 5 communities in Benue State is brought before the House.
The situation and development has inflicted untold hardship on women, children, and elderly who are trekking long distances in search of safe haven.
Humongous amount of money have been allocated. We have not done our constitutional oversight responsibility to ensure that that money is judiciously utilized.
You get the same answer. Nothing being done. Why do we have to continue to do the same thing? It's a question for the Senate.
We should insist on getting improvements, and of course, constitutional review is coming. I don't know what we can do better, but the security architecture in Nigeria today has failed woefully. And we have said this many times, even in the previous assemblies, that this thing is not working.
What we concluded now is most important, to get a team from the Senate and the House of Rep to get audience with the President in the presence of the service chiefs so that we take a decision that will yield result.
Many proffered solutions before the lawmakers adopted some resolutions to prevent further attacks.
Those who are in support of this say aye, those against say nay. The ayes are.
The bill for an act to amend the National Assembly Library Trust Fund to alter the name to National Assembly Library and Resource Center scaled third reading after an exhaustive consideration.
Change the name to National Assembly Library and Resource Center, streamline the functions of the Governing Council and the Office of the Director General to set up the National Assembly Museum and for Related Matters 2024. Third reading taken.
Now, after the consideration of the report on ethics, code of conduct and public petitions, the Senate also directed the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Abuja to reinstate Mr. Igwe Cyprian as a bona fide student after an alleged wrongful rustication and thereafter a written apology. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Honorable Gwega Isiaka joins this morning. He is the Chairman, House Committee on Student Loans, Scholarships and Higher Education Financing. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Shabalin. Good morning, Makwe, and good morning, Nigerians.
We'll talk about this in a bit, but I mean, it's been a while. I mean, after, I think one of the key times was when you tried to get the #1 seat in Ogun State. So what happened? You abandoned that and then came to the House, or just keeping your gunpowder dry?
Well, it's still service to the people.
Either way.
The whole essence of the governorship race was to serve the people of Ogun State. Now I have opportunity to serve the people of my federal constituency. So it's still along the same line. I mean, what happens after now, you know, that time will determine it.
Well, the people certainly need a lot more service, even more so now, because security is huge. It's a big deal. Communities are affected. Businesses are affected, schools, so it's really important. And I know that the House of Reps as well as the Senate, as you saw in that report, did raise concerns about it. Some of them didn't speak about how they were almost directly affected by security. So this decision about meeting or having an audience with the president, we know that lawmakers also had a session with the service chiefs. It clearly shows that maybe they're not satisfied with that, the kind of results they expected. It's not happening yet. Talk to us about that kind of meeting or the intention and what you intend to achieve with that meeting.
Well, thank you very much. Still the same government. Yes, we have 3 arms of it, legislative, executive, and judiciary. But at the end of the day, everything is to serve 200 million plus people of Nigeria. And I think the idea is that having spoken with the service chiefs and all the security heads, both at both chambers, the Senate, because it was the Senate that passed that yesterday, and I think I quite agree with that. The Senate felt that the issue should be taken to the #1 citizen of the country, who is actually the one the entire security apparatus report to, There might be certain things that we feel that was not, will not be discussed with the service chiefs, particularly given the forum at which this was discussed. Some of those ones to be taken up. Then personal experiences and all of that, so that it's just to take the issue, to the highest level. And I think, given the level at which insecurity is now in the country, it's affecting everything. When you talk about inflation, you talk about food inflation, you talk about all of this. It's all tied to the fact that insecurity has issues there. So so the long and short of it is that the issue is just to let the whole country know, and the Mr. President knows that our constituents are concerned, our constituents are worried. We've talked to the service chiefs. Now we need to talk to Mr. President himself, so that certain things can be.
A number of citizens will expect lawmakers to have a lot more information than themselves, even when it comes to security, and they may not be wrong on that one. So, what is your own understanding or perception or impression about perhaps what we may be missing, the missing link in our approach to ensuring that we put an end to all of this insecurity?
Well, my thinking is that it is the intelligence part of the job that we need to do a lot more work on. Because what we have now is attack at, very vulnerable areas. The one that happened yesterday was in a primary school around 7, 8 a.m. Even if you say you want to secure everywhere, are you going to have security agencies in all the primary schools that we have in the country? But how did it happen that over 200, pupils and teachers were taken away from, a school within the territory of Nigeria, and the intelligence could not pick it? Then how did they move from there out into the bush, out into the forest, and the intelligence was not able to, to pick it? So I think that that is the area that I see, the greatest, missing link that I see. Criminals will want to do what they want to do. There's so much that attacks and preventing them can do to it. But how do we prevent it from happening? Particularly this soft spot, this soft area.
Do you think that National Assembly might be kicking themselves now? Because I think it was the 8th or 9th when the bill to have multi-level policing came through, and it didn't just scale through because people thought at that time, we need to bring a lot more home. Let more people be involved, people who know the terrain. But now, they say, look, if they had done that at that time, who knows? You may not be talking about this at this time.
Well, I quite agree with you. I mean, I just got into the National Assembly, but even before now, I always believe that we need to bring policing down to the people, down to the communities. Via the state police. But it looks to me now that everybody is now talking about it. Everyone now see the need for it. It's a bit too late. I mean, we've lost so much in that, but we can always just take it up now. So that is one step that I think can also help intelligence, in picking some of these things, because that to me is the area that we have the greatest challenge in this security apparatus.
Well, some people have argued that what we need is not state police, but community police, because they don't want a situation whereby you have state police and more than half of the officers are located maybe in the state capital, and the communities, where they're really, really needed, are left, barren, so to speak. But you talked about the failure of intelligence, being one of the biggest problems that we have. Some people will also say, what about response? Because you've asked the question, how did this happen? That 200 children were taken and there was not, there was no intelligence about it. But after it had happened, some people will say, at least we should be able to call somewhere to say such a thing has happened, and maybe the insurgents would have been stopped in their tracks. But that wasn't the situation. So should we also be looking at the response mechanism of the current force that we have on ground? Definitely.
It's a whole, I just picked that as what I consider to be the most, the most essential. Definitely, the response to is also something that we need to look at, and that is where the service chiefs and security apparatus have questions, to also, answer Nigerians. This thing is not just happening now. We were all alive when the Chibok girls happened, and a couple of others since that time. So how can another one happen? 200 plus.
You say 7 a.m.
Yeah, 7, 8 a.m. So how can another one happen? Particularly in an area that these things have been happening. It's not as if they moved to another area and nobody expected it. So how did that happen? I mean, that is quite disheartening to be frank with you. So it's one of the things that we need to excuse me. So I quite agree. We cannot run away from the fact that our security setup, architecture, they have been doing a lot that we have been seeing, but a lot more needs to be done. A lot more needs to be done. We cannot have children of 10, 12 years going to school, and from there they end up being in the bushes. Or only God knows how long that is going to be. I pray we're able to bring it down to they bring them back as soon as possible. So definitely, it's a whole gamut of things. Community policing, state policing. The idea is that let us bring policing down home. That is the idea. Let us bring it down. Of course, when it gets to the states, it is people in the communities that will make it up. I mean, the idea is that if something is happening in my constituency, for instance, in Imeko, Aitoro, for instance, I don't want to begin to call Abuja before I have answers to it. Let me be able to call at least 1 hour away or something. And, ditto with everywhere that we have in any other part of the country. So, I mean, and of course, by the time we get to the discussions of it, at, what you call discussion of the changes, we'll be able to look at all of this. Yeah. But to me, the idea is that let's bring this thing, let's devolve power from here. Let's bring this thing down, down, so that people that are close to an area can be involved in the security apparatus of the area.
I see the point you're making there about community versus state police. But I'm just wondering, as you've rightly pointed out, the fact that this is not the first time this is happening. As a matter of fact, I'm sure if we were to do a chronicle of how many incidences we've had with regards to children, I'm sure we'll be detailing well over 30 incidences. They're
all the same pattern.
Since 2014, which is really disheartening. We've had something like this happen in Niger State, where children, some of them as young as 3 years old, were abducted from an Islamia school somewhere in Niger State. A bunch of them were taken from that school, and now it's happening again. So when we look at this the repetition, the repetitiveness of these attacks, now you're a lawmaker, but do you sometimes wonder if we're people who are serious about really staying on top of the issues that affect us?
Well, I think so. We engage them, we engage all the service chiefs, and we can see a reasonable level of seriousness and wanting to end all this.
Is this about the service? I mean, this is not... Sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt your thoughts, but I'm wondering if this is about the service chiefs, or if this is about us putting structures in place that can prevent this sort of attacks.
Well, that is the structure that we have now. We are just now saying that we want to expand the structure to bring in the people in the communities to it. We are like 5 years, 6 years, or even 10 years behind in doing that. Maybe if you have done that some years ago, maybe when we have the last what they call it now, the conference, and some of these things came up, if that has been implemented, maybe we'll not be where we are now. So we are so many years behind in doing that, because I still feel that will at least, take care of this. We have the Amotekons, we have all of these, and all of that, but that is not the same thing as getting some of these people armed and let them know that they are in charge of the security in the area. So the reason why I refer to them is that those are the people that we have now. And we have now seen that they don't have all the answers to this. Yeah, they may have some answers. They don't have all the answers because like you said, the fact that this is happening repeatedly, almost the same pattern, tells us that there's failure. So and if there's failure, then that means that there's something wrong, with the... I mean, if you do the same thing several times, you get the same answers.
Sometimes it looks deliberate.
Yeah, so you get the same answers. So So now we have to be looking at some other options. And thank God that that option is now being discussed everywhere, at the legislature, at the executive, and everywhere it's being discussed. I think that soon and soon we should be able to see that coming on board.
You know why I'm saying this is really about the service chiefs? Because, there was, I think it was after that we set up a fund. I think then we had the British Prime Minister come into the country and talk about how the Safe Schools
Initiative.
Yeah, the Safe Schools Initiative, which was supposed to be an initiative outside of security. Have schools fenced, have, a few things just to ensure that at least before anybody just comes in to take children, it's not very easy for that person. Some obstacles along the way. And it doesn't appear that we have taken that initiative very seriously by, making sure that at least schools are places that, secured. So this is as outside of what the military chiefs are supposed to do. That's why I asked that question. Do you think we're serious? I mean, if we had initiatives like this that only come up when incidences like this occur, are we really taking ourselves seriously?
I would like to agree with you on that. Like they say, security is everybody's responsibility. And therefore, the people that are there, the government, because it is not the security chief that will do this one that you have just said, which is correct. The state, local government, and all of that will have to do that, or even the community will have to do that. And then to also have so many people, because these people must have come in on motorcycle or something to be able to go with. So how did they drive or ride, so many kilometers into that community, and nobody raised, and there was no alarm, there was no response, So you can tell that there are so many. If you want to begin to apportion blames, there are so many loopholes that that are explored by the people.
Sometimes we act as if these things are rocket science. They are not that difficult. There are measures that we can take to address these things, and a lot of them are just staring us in the face. But look, we have a number of grounds to cover on this matter before we bring in Ayo, because on this security challenge, there are just so many areas. For instance, for decades we've been talking about these Boko Haram attacks. What have we done as a country to say, listen, the police did not have capability at the time. Let's ensure that we don't overburden the military and ensure police can at least perform certain functions. We did something about Police Act. Where has it gotten us? It was just on paper. It didn't address the key issues because we're still grappling with some of these things. How many of those cycles you see everywhere even have plate numbers? How many of them are registered? We know in this country, when you at least have some skirmish on the roads, you see how they swarm you. You can't identify anybody. So there are basic things that we need to address, but we're playing the ostrich because we don't want to hurt certain people, and so things keep going this way. But look, I think it's something that we need to talk a lot more. But moving on to some of the other matters before we come in with Ayo, the suspension of rural electrification. Many were shocked and disappointed at what they had heard about corruption going on, or the kinds of persons you saw there. You thought, wait a minute, you thought that everybody was supposed to know that, okay, well, it should be business unusual now. But then that announcement came from the president. Is this something that, how did you respond to this when you read this?
I just felt that they asserted, when I read the president's release yesterday, but I didn't hear about the issues before now until the president
I thought now as head of oversight function, they should have picked some of these things before now.
Well, the committees that is looking at that might have picked it, and if they are still working on it, they may not have reported it yet on the floor. So someone like me may not have known. So I only got to know about it when I read the president's speech, which is another. The idea is that you can't pick everybody all at the same time, but let us make examples out of people so that we know that we are serious. That's what I read there, and from what I read about it, I think even the security, the anti-corruption agencies have also been involved, and they think they've done a bit of confirmation and collection of some of those money. So I think it's more like a confirmed case. And I think the step that was taken by the president was apt, was in order. Just to set sample. It's not even so much about the amount that is involved, but it's about the fact that this is a wrongdoing, so that everybody will be aware that this will not be allowed this will not be accepted.
Well, your chairman House Committee on Student Loan, I know my colleague did talk about that in the opening sequence, so I'm sure that he's got quite a number. Go ahead, Ayo.
Well, thank you. Maybe I should just begin with that particular question of concerning the suspension. Well, I mean, the upcoming student loan scheme is being postponed a number of times, and we've heard government talk from time to time that, we just want to make sure that we get it right. Exactly when is this likely to happen? What are the issues that have been dealt with? Because the students themselves seem to be at a loss, and their parents don't know what exactly is going on concerning the students' loan scheme that the federal government promised.
Well, the law was signed just in June. The bill rather was signed into law in June last year. Going to like 9 months now. Definitely for this kind of humongous activities, something that takes care of student loans all over the country. You need very solid preparations for it. And I think that is what the committees that is doing that is looking at. I read the release yesterday by the executive secretary, and what I read there was that the portal is going to be opened this month, this March, so that people that are interested, can begin to show interest. I like to believe that the postponement that I mentioned about maybe it has come to an end from what I read yesterday. So I think we are there. But to me, the most important thing is that this is not the first time there was something close to this in around 1972. It was shut down after about 10 or so years. There was the education board that was also, didn't particularly take off. So now that we are going into this, which is something that, is not new to the world since 1951 or so, when the first one debuted in Colombia. So I think that all that is being done is to ensure that they put the right things in place. Like I said, from what I read yesterday, I think that wait, we have come to the end of that wait. I expect that the students will be hearing from the managers of that fund now.
The House Committee on Student Loans, Scholarships and Higher Education, so you'll be able to tell us whether or not indeed this is the end of the rope, because before the law came into being, I'm pretty sure that there were all kinds of considerations made to ensure that, the law will be executable, so to speak. So let me assume that, that is a given indeed. But allow me to go back to the issue.
Let me say something about that quickly, please, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
This committee was set up just last week by Mr. Speaker.
I'm talking about, just a second, I'm talking about the fact that the law was set up in the first place. Before the law was made, there must have been infrastructure that can run it. Okay, all right. Okay. That's the basis of the concept.
Okay, fine, I assume so. Don't let me argue with you on that. So let's go on.
How about, is there any collaboration with states concerning this particular issue of student loans? Any role for state governments?
Well, the funding is coming from, the headroom federation account. So definitely the states are indirectly involved. And the law also says that it is for all public schools, both that are owned either by federal and state, all tertiary and vocational schools owned by both federal and state governments. Set up by both federal and state governments. So definitely the state governments, all the state governments are already indirectly involved. Of course, other things can happen at National Economic Council and all of that regarding the funding. But the way the funding is structured now is taken right from the federation account, and therefore indirectly all the states are involved.
From what you know, what are the likely inhibitions in the way? What are the likely challenges that this initiative can meet along the way to avert what you said happened in the 70s?
Well, typically, if the most important thing, or one of the most important things for this kind of initiatives is the structure. The structure has to be strong so that those people that are targeted are the ones that benefit from it. The law has a benchmark, or if your parents are earning up to a particular level, you are not expected to participate in it. So to be able to capture those people that will actually need it is very important. Also, ability to process applications and get back to the students soon enough is also one of the things. The other one is collection and the level of default as we go on, into it, so that it can be a sustainable fund. Is also one of the factors, and then truthfulness on the part of everybody that is involved, in terms of who gets what and all of that. Those are some of the factors that has affected positively or negatively this kind of funds in different jurisdiction. And I like to believe that is the kind of thing that is being looked at here to make sure that this starts on a good note.
Well, still talking about state governments, permit me to take you back to the issue of security that you were talking about the other time. Gratefully, my colleagues began the conversation with you talking about the fact that you wanted to run as governor of a state. Now, what happened in Kaduna recently is, as you have said, unacceptable. And then there are those who would naturally point to the fact that, okay, so the National Assembly wants to meet the federal government now, wants to meet the president now. Every senator that will be in the room with the president in that meeting are representing one state or the other, at least 3 from each state of the federation. Is there any comment, any responsibility that you think the state governments could have taken? Someone came here twice, people have told us that governors collect quite a significant amount of money for security votes. So one is wondering how such a thing would happen and no one would be able to know anything about it. Taking children, that number of children, almost 300 children out of a particular school is not something that happens within 1 minute. They did not rehearse being kidnapped. So exactly what responsibility could the governors have had that perhaps could have staved off this particular issue?
I didn't get the last part of it. What responsibility?
What responsibility could the state governments have taken that would have averted that particular kind of situation?
Well, the states, a lot of the states on their own has also taken initiatives to set up security outfits, and I think some of these have also been giving positive responses and positive results in terms of apprehending culprits and apprehending criminals in various locations. I think this is some of the things. At the end of the day, the number one objective of or role or responsibility of a government at any level is to secure the people. I'm also aware that they are quite, by virtue of my closeness to the government in Ogun State, I'm also aware that there are a lot of support being given by state government, even to the Nigerian police and other security operatives, so that they can protect the territory of the states, as it were. But I think directly now is to also set up some of these, and so that at the locals also even have local intelligence gathering people that can give information to the state that can now be given out, because like you said, end of the day, all these people live among us, all they live within us. So it's a bit of a concern that did not happen at all, and we're able to get this. But let us hope that maybe the issue of the state policing, if they now know that that's their responsibility to manage the security concern in a particular community, maybe then we'll now be able to have more results. Responsibility that belongs to everybody, probably does not belong to. It doesn't belong to anybody. But now, if the police if the community police officers in a particular local government knows that if anything happens, they are the ones that are going to be held responsible for what happens there, maybe they will show more concern and more, maybe we'll get more results. That is what I hope. But I think the state government have been doing a little bit from what I have. At least I know of my state, Ogun State. I know they do quite a lot in terms of in that regard, in the area of Amotekun and all of those.
Do you know, in 2014 when Boko Haram started well in 2009, well, in 2014 when they abducted Chibok girls, we had an idea of why they had done it, and we knew what their mission was about. This is 2024. Do we know who these bandits are and what their mission can be?
I think the IG or the Inspector General of Police, that is very deep intelligence information that I honestly don't have. I don't have. The only thing I know is that we have been disturbed in the country. We all grew up in this country. I mean, I served in Jos. I have my friends that served in Kano State at that time. At times we leave Jos at about 10 p.m. to go and have, one thing or the other to do in Kano. And I know we all cannot do that now, which is disturbing, which is disheartening. Why they are doing it or what is the reason behind it is something that I can't conjure as I sit down here.
All right, we need to wrap up, but I mean, one thing that the authorities should know is that, look, when people have their backs against the wall, it was a couple of days ago that the police said they had discovered a local fabrication place in Jos. If you see the AK-47 that they were fabricating, finely crafted, locally done. So you can imagine when people feel helpless, they resort to those kind of avenues to help themselves. So and that's why the stats came through about millions of light weapons and arms in private hands. So the earlier they recognize all of those things and do something and stop being political about some of these things, the better for everybody else. Because people have these things just to protect themselves because they lost faith in security apparatus and some government at some point. So if they don't do that, people will fill in the gap. That can never be avoided. There has to be something that will fill it. So it's important that we all address this as soon as we can. Well, so thank you for coming on this morning. Honorable Boyega Isiaka, Chairman, House Committee on Student Loans, Scholarships, and Higher Education Financing. Thank you for coming on this morning again.
Thank you very much, and thank you, viewers at home.